Okay, so we are here ready to start sculpting the bottom half of our sculpture. And this proves to be really difficult for some students, so I wanted to show how you can attack this. We are going to first bulk out that area below the waist before the groin to just kind of get it level with what we have here. And I folded up some foil and I'm just going to wrap it around. I want this arm down and I don't want to mess up what I've done on my sculpting. So I'm just going to work around it. I'm just going to pop just a tad bit of glue there to hold it in place. Now, sometimes students burn themselves on the glue when they're trying to work it. So sometimes I'll just take a pencil and press it into the glue instead of using my fingertip. And I find that saves me from some burns. So I'm just wrapping that foil around to create the volume that I need to continue with underneath the belt of my form here, my guy. And nobody's going to see this, and this isn't going to stay this way, but it gives me more to work with than just the skinny wire that was under there. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue here too. And once again, instead of burning my fingers, I'm going to rub it down with that pencil. Now I'll go back in and add more to this, but that gives me something to work with. And so I'm going to think about the sides here. So my waist goes in, but then my hips flare back out a little bit, even on a man. And so I'm going to add a little bit more here and here on each side. I'm going to try to work with my foil not as close to the microphone. I've got about a half a sheet, and I'm going to just think about that shape that I'm wanting. And one of the things I need to remember is that this isn't high stakes, and the first time I try it, it doesn't have to work. It's okay if it doesn't work perfectly. So I'm gonna look at that, and that's too big. It's too long and it's too big. So I'm gonna kind of just put my thumb here, and I'm gonna take some scissors, and I'm gonna just chop that off. I'm gonna take another look. So I'm starting to get a little bit better hip. So our hips flare out. See how that's a triangle that I'm adding here to the space? See that? So I want to go ahead and add that. I like that shape that I found. But while I'm still thinking about that shape, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it again. Okay, I'm going to grab another piece of foil, and I'm going to squish it down into another triangle. And you'll notice that when you watch me sculpt, I really think in triangles a lot with the human form. It helps me to break things down into smaller sections so that I can look at them a little bit more compact, and instead of looking at big areas. Oh goodness, I don't even know what fell. Something in the studio fell. And I'm setting this down, and I'm going to kind of put my finger right where I want to cut again. And I'm going to just eyeball that and cut that off. And once again, I've got a little triangle that I want to try to fit in. Oh, I made it too long. That's okay. I'm just going to pick my scissors up. Always better to cut a little too much material than to take too much off, right? So I'm going to check that again. And yep, that's given me more of a hip area. So I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue where I'm wanting it. And then I'm going to press that into that area. So now I've got some hips I'm working with. Now, because my dude is standing like on one foot, one hip is higher than the other. If both of his feet were down, you could see that their hips are level, but my dude is leaning. So one hip is higher than the other hip. And so now we have gone past his waist and we've created a hip area. Now if we turn him over, we have the back, and this is where his tush would be. And if we look at our studio model, the tush is not a round ball, but it's kind of like a bean here with the dude that's standing. So clearly with mine, with one leg raised, the tushy is gonna change some. And so I don't suggest going back and using this hard crumpled foil. It's okay if that's just waste. I want to get a fresh piece of foil. And I'm going to sculpt one side and the other. I'm going to start with the side that's down, because I don't really have to imagine what that tushy cheek is going to do. I can see what I'm doing here. And so it's kind of like a teardrop shape, right? So I'm going to sculpt kind of a teardrop shape, and I'm using half of a sheet of foil from the pop-up to start. So it's kind of round at the bottom and it's coming to a point at the top. And you notice when I have too much material, I don't cry about it or try to force it to work. I just cut it off. And I'm going to continue to sculpt that into that shape that I think that I want. And there I've got a tushy. It's still a little bit big, so I'm going to squish it down a little harder. And now I've got that tush that's going to go on that side, and it's hanging down further than the hip. So I'm just going to push that up a little bit, and I want to squeeze this top because I want the part of the tush that goes into the back. I don't want it to be quite as strong. And I've got a belt here, so I don't want that to cover the belt. So I'm actually going to squish more and cut it down some more. So I just want you to see here that cutting the foil is totally fine, and setting it in to where you think you want it, and then taking it off and reestablishing what you think you want is totally fine. So now I'm gonna just put a little glue where I want that little part of his buttocks. Now I'm thinking, so he's standing, right? He's standing, and so this part of the tush is going to kind of go this way a little bit. So I'm going to use the same amount of foil that I used on the other one, which is a half sheet. And that's really important. Like if you're doing something on one side of the body, you want to try to do the same thing on the other side of the body and use the same amount of foil. And I wouldn't like walk away from this before I do the other one, because I'm going to remember how I did this if I just did it instead of if I try to do it next class. So like when I did the arms, I did those in one setting. Stuff like that, really, it helps your sculpting. So now I'm going to try to form another teardrop shape. I'm not sure I got so good of a squish on this one. Cut off the top there because I don't want it all. And I'm going to kind of look at it. It's too big. Squish it a little bit more. And see, just stopping to talk to you, I've kind of lost what I had in my head from what I sculpted on the other side. I like that. See, his tush is like pulled to the side because his hip is open like that. And I think that that's going to be a nice realistic volume for that area. Now, my person is wearing pants, and so I don't have to sculpt all the legs, all the muscles in the legs, but I'm going to go ahead and show it to you in the next video, just so that if you're wanting to sculpt it, you can. So now we have our groin and hip area, and we have our tushy here. And mine is spread out and cocked to the side a little bit here because of the way that my sculpture is standing. I'm just going to keep pressing this, and I'll see you in the next video.